Welcome in, everybody, to Inside the Game number 245. My name is Ryan Glinsky. Thank you for spending your Monday morning and kicking off the week right with me. It's just me here today. Nate is down in Florida, I believe, for Tigers spring training. Nate does a lot of work with the West Michigan Whitecaps, the Tigers affiliate, single A, and he's currently down in Florida right now with them. He'll be back Wednesday, so you'll just be rocking with me today and tomorrow. We're just going to do an hour show here today, tomorrow. So to be honest with you, it'd really help if you guys get some comments in on the show here today. Help me with, a little bit of the conversation aspect of things here on the live podcast here today. But it's the National Soccer Network. If you're a first-time viewing us here, whether that is on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, wherever we are, make sure to drop us a follow and subscribe, like the video, like the live stream. That helps us out a ton here, especially as we start to gear up here towards the World Cup. We have a goal right now. If you're over on our TikTok right now, we do have a goal. Try to hit 2,000 followers before we get to the start of the World Cup. I believe we're like 95, 94 days out. We also have a World Cup countdown every single day as we count down the days to the World Cup. But yeah, after that, after all of that house cleaning, let's talk about some soccer here today. Normally we have a cold open, but I don't really have one right now for a cold open. If you got any ideas, put them in the comments. Would love to hear what you guys have to say. But yesterday, it was fight day in soccer. I don't know why yesterday, March 8th, was the decision, but it was fight day yesterday. We had Celtic Rangers. We had a fight after the fact of that one. And then we had a league over in Brazil. There was a fight there. And then we had, well, not a fight in this third one, but we had in the Hertha Berlin game, the fans actually pulled the VAR cord, so the referee couldn't actually see the VAR at all. He was supposed to come over to the monitor to help make a decision, and instead the fans pulled the VAR cord and decided to not even make a decision with VAR. The referee just said, you know what, I'm just going to make my own decision, award the penalties I saw on the field, not even going to look at VAR. But that was back in the Hertha Berlin game, League 2 down in the Bundesliga. That's what it was. But let's talk about actually, no, we do have a cold open today. We lost an hour, so we gained an hour worth of sunlight here today in Michigan. Gotta say, that's wonderful news until I think it is. I don't even know when the next one is, November, October, whenever we gain an hour. But no, happy that the days are going to be longer. It's going to be brighter, warmer. We're getting closer to the best time of the year, which is the World Cup time. That's going to be the best time of the year. But moving back to our first topic of the day, fight day. Fight day in soccer. Let's start with Celtic Rangers. This is why it's one of the best rivalries in all of soccer. You could argue a Real Madrid, Barcelona. Could argue Man City, Man United, Liverpool, Everton. I think it's the best ones I could think of off the top of my head. But no, this is why it's one of the most intense rivalries in all of soccer, which, by the way, I made a video on social media. I said Celtic instead of Celtic. I thought it was Celtic, and everyone said it was Celtic. So if people could come out there in the comments and say what the correct pronunciation is, that'd be greatly appreciated. But this is why it's one of the best rivalries in all of soccer. After that penalty goes in, past Jack Butland, which, by the way, Stoke City legend, by the way. Stoke City, whatever happened to them? Corner FC, whatever happened to them? But this is why it's one of the most intense rivalries, maybe the best rivalry in all of soccer. Just what happened after the game. That penalty goes in, and shout out Premier Sport, who was the broadcasting broadcasting network for this game, and actually showed the whole thing, the whole 5 minutes, whole 6 minutes, whatever it was. After that PK goes in, Celtic fans start coming onto the field a little bit, and you can kind of see them taking selfies with some of the players, the guy who just scored the game-winning PK, and then we're just starting to see that kind of transpire, and then all of a sudden the Celtic players start heading towards the tunnel. And, of course, this was in the Scottish Premier, the Scottish Cup or whatever it was, the equivalent of an FA Cup. So single elimination, got Celtic to the semifinals, and you start to see them leave the field because at this point it's all about player safety. You don't want to see these players get hurt in any way because of a fan. No one wants to see that. So what do instead? Try to head towards a tunnel, and then all of a sudden, um, they just start fighting. The Rangers fan starts hitting one of the managers, one of the staff members for Celtic, and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. Then we see the Rangers fans start filing out of the field, and then they start with wearing masks, of course, which I'm not going to lie, it's kind of a smart thing to do if you're going to rush a field like this in this type of an environment. You're going to wear a mask to, at least try to hide yourself in case you get in trouble and you get put on TV that, no one really knows who it was until you get caught by the cops or the security, whatever the whole prosecution is. I don't know how this all works. I've never rushed a field. So if you've rushed a field and you're watching the show right now, let me know what happens if you get caught, because I have no idea what happens. Or if you know somebody, put it in the comments down below about that. But no, it just after that, it was melee. Then we see the Rangers fans coming flying down the field. They're shooting flares at the Celtic players and fans, and then it just becomes a I wouldn't say a bloodbath, but it gets hectic. And yeah, that's what happened there in fight number one. And just the fact that it lasted, 6 minutes all after a PK shootout. It's just crazy how intense this rivalry is, because this isn't the first time this has ever happened. This has happened a handful of times. This is why this is the most intense rivalry in all of soccer. Is it the best rivalry in terms of the players out there and the stakes all the time? No, I wouldn't say that. But it is the most intense rivalry because of the hatred that these two teams have for each other. And we talk about in rivalry in sports, it's about respect as well, because you don't want to, because you always respect your rival. You can always dislike them, but you can always respect them. And I think that's exactly what these two sides have. They respect each other. I don't think they necessarily, hate them to the fullest extent, but I think there is a sense of respect, a sense of hatred between these two sides. And this happens all the time. And what happened yesterday with just shooting flares at each other, which how in the world can you get flares into a stadium? Because I think here in America that just can't happen. I don't think you can get flares into a stadium here in America, whether that is a American football game, whether that's an MLS game, whether that's a USL game, whether that's a MLB game, whether that's a NHL. I don't think you can get flares into stadiums. I just don't think you can. And that is just blows my mind that you have the ability to bring flares into a stadium where there's tens of thousands of people. I just think that is that just blows my mind a little bit. But that's how that happened. That's fight number one. Celtic, of course, did win that game on shootouts. They advanced to the Scottish Cup semifinals. Fight number two comes from the Brazilian league. This happened a little bit late last night. If you're an American watching this from the stateside, this happened late last night in this Brazil game. 23 red cards awarded in a game, which breaks a record back from 1954 in a Brazilian game with 22 red cards were awarded. This one had 23 red cards awarded instead. This is a fight broke out between players and coaches. So there was no fans involved in this one at all. It was just the players and the coaching staff. Cruzeiro and Atlético Mineiro for the right to be crowned champions of the Campeonato Mineiro, top flight in the Brazilian state of Minas Gerais. It was just a one-goal game that actually ended things. I believe Atlético did win. But the shot comes in from a Cruzeiro player and the goalkeeper for Atlético, Everson. They kind of collide there. And then you can kind of see that Everson was a little bit upset with what happened. And then puts a knee on the chest of the Cruzeiro player, and his name was Christian. Just name's Christian, it looks like. No last name, no nothing. And he just gets pushed, and then all of a sudden, melee breaks, and all hell breaks loose. And then we see a whole bunch of just tackles and punches and kicks flying in all over the place. And it's just crazy because I don't think there was a red card actually awarded. I don't think the referee went in his back pocket and awarded red cards. I think he just started ejecting players. And the the security was all about the fans at this point, so it's really just up to the officials to try to get this thing underway. And 23 red cards in a game is just crazy, and especially coming from from the Brazilian league, and also Brazilian Hulk. I don't know if people remember, but he's still playing, still in top physical form, like he normally is. He threw a couple punches in there, but it just starts with just haymakers flying in every way. Typically in sporting fights, and especially in soccer, we don't typically see punches thrown. We typically don't see that. And we saw fights. We saw flying kicks coming in, like we're in the Karate Kid or something. We see Daniel LaRusso up in here, and we just see all these fights coming out, and 23 red cards were awarded. We don't know the exact punishment that's going to be issued in this at all. I'm sure that will come out here a little bit later today. I'm sure the whole Brazilian Football Federation has taken a long look at this, because it was about, I think, 2-minute fight, 3-minute fight, I believe. So I don't know exactly, the extent of how long they've broken this thing down. But they're going to have a long look at this, and I'm sure the Football Federation is looking at this thing close, looking at every single frame, breaking it down frame by frame. But they're going to have a long look at this of just trying to dish out the punishments accordingly. Again, maybe you can just punish the team overall, because it's a team sport, and all these players, did all these players fought each other, and all these coaches. Did the coaches get punishment? Does the players get punished? If I'm being honest with you, I just think everyone should get punished. I think the whole team should get punished. I think they should forfeit their next game. Whoever that's against, I think they should just forfeit their next game, whenever that is. Because, 23 players got a red card, or coaches got red cards. I think that's enough punishment to make them forfeit their next game, give a victory to the team. And, I don't know what the exact rule is. Maybe it's a 3-0 loss, maybe it's a 5-0 loss, whatever it is. But I think you punish them and make them forfeit their next game, because the extent and the amount of players and coaches that were actually in this whole mess. This is different from the Celtic one, because that one was mainly just fans being fans, and the rivalry and all that coming out. But this was strictly players and coaches. This was all on the field. This had nothing to do with fans. This had nothing to do with the outcome of a game. This was at the end of the first half. I think they were 6 minutes into stoppage time at this point. But this is just kind of where the game can get bad in soccer, and we've seen it happen a couple of times. We even think back to the AFCON Cup final a couple months ago. We talked about that, and then we talk about what happened with Celtic Rangers yesterday. We talked about this, what happened with Atletico Mineiro and Cruzeiro yesterday. But I think that's the rightful punishment, because you don't want this to happen ever again. You don't want teams around the league or teams around the world see that was just a slap on the wrist from this particular federation, specifically kind of talking about Brazil here. But if a Brazilian side were to see this and see that these sides got a slap on the wrist, and we see these players that threw these punches or these kicks only get a game or two suspension, then what's stopping these other teams from doing it? There's nothing that actually is stopping them, for these other teams, especially in the Brazilian league, to actually not do this again, because they see this slap on the wrist. We could do the same thing, and then we should get the same punishment, because the bar is now set with an altercation like this. Whatever the punishment is dished out, that's the standard set. That's what the bar is set at. And it's just interesting to think that the soccer can get pretty dark sided like that. And it's a bad thing. It gives the game a black eye as well, because everyone, I think, likes fights, and I think everyone likes altercations, especially in games where fights aren't the norm. Like if it's boxing, UFC, that's one different thing. And in hockey, I think that's a different thing as well, because fighting is ultimately a part of the game. But if we look at a game like American football, basketball, baseball, look at the game of soccer, fighting's not a part of the game. And obviously there's some pushing and shoving after plays, or maybe some certain challenges. People want to have a couple words with each other. In rivalries, sometimes emotions spill over. But we've never seen an extent to this. 23 players 23 players and coaches given red cards. That broke the record from 1954. So over 60 years, this whole record stood of 22 red cards in a game. They beat them by one with one red card here, but let's hopefully the Brazilian Federation. I don't think FIFA could get involved with this thing because it's not an international thing. I think it just simply has to be the Brazilian Football Federation to get involved with this. So I would like to see a harsh punishment put out there because, again, Brazilian soccer fans, I think the South American soccer fans, they're on level with the European soccer fans. I think they're both crazy in their own right. I think that's what the way it is. And let's see what goes on there. And then the third one before we get to our first break here. Again, just an hour show here today, 9 to 10. Typically, we go 9 to 11, but with Nate not here today, we're going to go 9 to 10 here today and tomorrow, Wednesday. We'll get back to your regular scheduled programming, which is 9 to 11, Monday through Friday. But Monday and Tuesday today, we're just going to go 9 to 10 a.m., 1 hour. But the third one, not a fight, but just something crazy that happened in the game as well. Hertha Berlin playing on Münster in the Bundesliga 2, League 2 in the German league. We saw a penalty given at the end of the first half in favor of Hertha Berlin, but the fans decided to pull the VAR cord for the for the center official in this game, and never seen that happen before. Typically, when a decision is a little bit too close to call, VAR would like to signal down to the referee. Referee comes over to the monitor that's on the field, help make this decision. But the fans pulled the cord on the VAR monitor. And the referee couldn't make a decision at all in this thing. So the referee says, you know what, I'm going to continue with the call on the field because I can't make the call on the field right now. So I'm just going to give a penalty awarded to Hertha Berlin, which they then capitalize on, make it 1-1 heading into halftime, or 1-0 heading into halftime, rather. Munster would equalize, just a minute into the second half. And then Hertha Berlin wins it 2-1. But just a crazy day overall in soccer yesterday. We see what happened in the Scottish League with Celtic and Rangers. Then we have the massive brawl at the end of at the end of the at halftime of the Brazilian game. We have that going on, and then obviously in Bundesliga too. Something crazy that happened on. And again, hopefully this doesn't happen with fans again. I don't think that they would do this with VAR. I know a lot of fans are upset with VAR and the whole thing, and ever since it's been implemented into our game. And I mean, if there's a cord for a club to VAR that's accessible to fans, I think you might want to fix that yourself. If I'm being completely honest with you, because that just means it might happen again. And we can't have that happen again because the point of VAR is to clear obvious mistakes and overturn them, get the game in the right frame of mind, and correct every wrong decision that is clear and obvious. And that's exactly what it's there for. It's not there to be corrupt or anything, even though a lot of fans, think it might be corrupt and favored in terms of certain teams. Man City, Real Madrid. Sorry, I just had to clear my throat there for a split second. But that's what it's there for. I know a lot of fans do not like it because also it takes a long time for some of these decisions to go to be confirmed, but it's there for a reason. It's not there to piss off certain fan bases. It's not there to just take up time and space in a game. It's not there at all. It's not for there at all. But that's exactly what it's there for, is to clear up the clear and obvious situations. I don't see an issue with VAR ever. That's just me personally. I don't think there's an issue with VAR. Do I think it might benefit a couple of teams? Yes, I think it does. But at the same time, it's there to clear up obvious mistakes. And referee, right on him for just saying, you know what, I'm going to call what's on the field because I can't even see what's going on in VAR. But that wraps up segment number 1 here. Fight day in soccer. Just overall crazy day yesterday, starting with Celtic Rangers Brazilian game, and then in the Bundesliga 2. Right after this, we'll talk a little MLS Roundup Week 3 wrapped up yesterday. Messi sells out a 72,000-seat stadium in Baltimore. A couple other big victories around the MLS. Then after that, we'll talk a little bit Serginho Dest. He might have an injury, 1 to 2 week injury. Could he or a 1 to 2 week injury, hamstring injury? We didn't think he'd miss the World Cup, but a potential scare for the U.S. men's national team side, especially with the World Cup coming up. And then on the other side, we might, if we have time, Might have to talk about the Arsenal legend that is Max Dowman. Shouldn't say legend. He's only 16 years old, but he played really well against Mansfield Town. A couple FA Cup results around Wrexham Falls to Chelsea. Again, if we got time for that, which I think we will here today. But let's look into our first commercial. But before we get into that, let's talk about some soccer summer camps. Here at the National Soccer Network, we got a handful of soccer summer camps coming up this summer. The World Cup's coming up, and everyone's going to be getting into the game of soccer. We know the game of soccer is going to spike because of the World Cup. And why not, increase your game a little bit, improve your game by doing one of these soccer summer camps? And why not start off with FC Bayern Soccer Summer Camps? They're a proud sponsor of the National Soccer Network, fostering football excellence across North America. Open to boys and girls of all skill levels. FC Bayern Camp delivers elite training inspired by FC Bayern Munich's world-class philosophy. Select your city and start a promising soccer path. And right now, save $30 on registration by using promo code Bayern NSN30 or scan the QR code on your screen. Learn more at fcbayernyouth.com. Welcome back to Inside the Game. My name's Ryan Glinsky, episode 245 on right now. Nate Wengler not here today, won't be here tomorrow either. He'll be back on Wednesday. He's currently in spring training down in Florida. Lucky him, it's probably like 75 degrees down there right now compared to Michigan, which I think it's like 50. So not too bad, but it is sunny right now. But hey, would rather be in Florida right now, if I'm being completely honest with you. But yeah, let's talk a little bit MLS here. Week 3 just wrapped up. Hey, of course, only 9 to 10 here today and tomorrow. We're just doing an hour. Typically, we do 9 to 11 Monday through Friday. But hey, some MLS action here in week number 3. There's your scores around the league. But this wraps it up. New York City with the biggest win of the weekend, 5-0 against Orlando City. And typically a league where we see a lot of goals scored in a weekend. Didn't quite get that all over the place. A couple of blowouts. LA Galaxy falls again. They're a club that is needs to get back up on the right track, and rivals LAFC are really starting to take over their spot in LA, Kings of LA. But then only one 0-0 draw. That's Columbus and Chicago Fire. Miami wins 2-1 against DC United. The Inter Miami is just kind of becoming the Dallas Cowboys or the New York Yankees, except they do win, so that doesn't really help the comparison between those couple of teams and clubs and franchises. But Miami, you always got to update them because of what Messi's doing and all the sidebars they have as well. You think of guys like Luis Suarez and all the craziness that he does on a day-to-day basis. But there's that. But there is something else I want to mention. Vancouver 4-1 against Portland. Goal and an assist from Sebastian Berhalter, Tristan Blackman with a goal. All U.S. men's national team goal involvements yesterday. So does that help their case for maybe getting a call up here in March at the end of the month for Mauricio Pochettino? Maybe. But I think at the same time, I think everyone has kind of done everything that they need to do, and they've either impressed or not impressed Mauricio Pochettino and his World Cup selection. I think that doesn't really matter up to this point. But there is your scores. Nashville 3-1. They continue to say one of the best teams in the East. But just looking at the the kind of early stages of the MLS season. I know it's only 3 weeks, so we can't really, kind of crown anybody at this point. It's like, oh, this team might go this far. We can't really do that yet here. But New York City currently top, tied with Nashville for top of the points in the East. So that's where they're at. Only difference is one goal in the goal difference. Miami sits at third with 6 points, tied with New York Red Bulls, who's sixth in fourth place. Chicago Fire in fifth in fourth place. But you look at the other side on the West. 4 teams still remains perfect. San Diego FC number 1 with 9 points. Vancouver in second with 9. 1 goal separates those two in the goal difference category. Then you look at LAFC and San Jose. They're tied for third because they are level on goal difference, but they are all level on points. So they're perfect. 4 teams are perfect on the West. The East side a little bit closer, but no one is perfect. A team, at least every single team, has dropped a point at some point, and you wonder, maybe is the Western Conference the better conference of the two? I know it's early goings here, but it seems like in sports, the West is always better than the East. Across all American leagues. But it seems like this way in the early goings, the first couple of weeks, that the West is the better league. For in the MLS. The East side, yeah, there's some really good quality, and the reigning champs of Miami FC are still over there, and you have New York City, who currently leads it right now. Yeah, there's definitely some quality on the eastern side of the MLS, but the west side, it just seems like they might be pulling away at the right time. Even the New York Red Bulls, you wonder how long that's going to last. They did lose 3-0 yesterday to Montreal, but I wanted to highlight the Red Bulls real quick. Michael Bradley, first-time manager, maybe becomes a U.S. men's national team manager later on down the line. I think he definitely has the qualities to potentially do that. I think he is a guy that can bring the locker room together, and I think, kind of not take anything from anybody. I think he will do a good job if he were to be the U.S. men's national team manager. I think that is a real possibility, I think, further on down the line. But I don't even think for the 2030 World Cup he'll get that gig. I think maybe 2034 is what you're looking at, a little bit more realistic for a guy like Michael Bradley. I think if you're the U.S. men's national team, do not give the manager spot because, again, I said Poch, I think, is gone after the World Cup anyway. I think he was just brought here to be in the World Cup. But I think, you look at a guy like Michael Bradley to be your manager, I would like a little bit more experience from a men's national team standpoint. Bradley's only coached in 3 games for the New York Red Bulls. But back to the main point I was trying to say, I got on a little soapbox there. How long does the youth movement last? Because I know they started off hot in the first 2 games, but then I feel like they got a little bit of a reality check. 3-0 loss to Montreal yesterday. And how long does this youth movement last? I don't know how long the youth movement lasts, but after a certain point, you got to think to yourselves, you know what? Maybe we can't give the kids as many run-ins as we feel like. Maybe we to have the kids, play a little bit less minutes and we bring them in kind of some specialty spots. And it always amazes me when, a team brings up the kids, whether this is, a side in Europe or this is a side here in the MLS. The first couple of games is kind of like the honeymoon phase, and it always goes well. I don't know why, but maybe it's just that injection of youth, that little bit of energy. The fans are kind of like, oh my gosh, this could be the future. And these kids also want to prove to themselves. But at the same time, I think teams don't necessarily have a scouting report yet on these guys just because, they're all so new. They're all so young. And New York, one of the youngest sides in the MLS, if not the youngest. How long does this last? How long until maybe Michael Bradley might dip into the the market and whenever it opens up in the summer of, what, we might have to have some veterans. Maybe we have to have some older players to maybe help guide, help mold these young players because there's a ton of potential. But right now, are they MLS ready? I guess so. I guess maybe you could say they're MLS ready because they've made a handful of starts and a couple of goal contributions early. But at the same time, you're looking at results. We're in the results business, and when you aren't getting the results that you need, and again, this is just a small sample size. I know it's 3 games, and they've only had 1 bad loss, and that was yesterday to Montreal. But at some point, if this continues, maybe you think, maybe the kids, sit on the bench a little bit more. Maybe they sit a little bit, but there's always this kind of a new manager bump, I guess, when it comes to the kids. I don't know why, but there's always this new manager bump, always this new youth bump, new youth movement bump. I don't know why that is, but I mentioned a little bit before maybe what some of the possibilities are. but that is just something to keep an eye out for going forward with the New York Red Bulls, just because it's a big side. Vancouver, again, mentioned them a little bit briefly about, maybe they do anything for the men's national team, helping some of their stock. I think Sebastian Berhalter is going to be on the roster, so I think anything he does at this point is just going to help his case of maybe some minutes going forward. Do I think he should be on the roster? I don't know. I think that's up for debate. I don't think he should be on the men's national team roster, to be completely honest with you. I think there's a couple better options, like a Tanner Tessman. I think even was he better than Christian? I guess he's better than Christian Roldan. I guess if you're going to say Roldan should be on the roster, maybe Berhalter should not be on the roster. That's just what I'm looking at. Anything else that's a little bit noteworthy? I guess San Diego FC stays perfect against Kansas City, 1-0 win. Same with LAFC, 1-0 win against Dallas. And I think it's at this point in the season that, results aren't the way it looks is not always the best thing at this point in the season, in any league in soccer. I think it's all about getting those 3 points in the bag, getting as many points as possible, as many points as you can store in your back pocket to help you later on down the season. Now, it's not necessarily how it looks at this point in the season, because we've seen teams all across the world, in the MLS, in the Premier League, in La Liga, in Bundesliga, that teams that, start off the first couple of weeks, maybe in the first month or two, slow, but they kind of get some results going their way. They might not look good doing it, but at the same time, they're getting the results. They're getting the points. They're getting the 3 points. They're getting the point in there or not. And it helps them for later on down the season. And it's not necessarily how it looks. It's not necessarily, how much you win by. It's all about getting the 3 points. And that's exactly what some of these teams did this weekend. San Diego and LAFC in particular, they get it done and they stay on the West and they stay perfect, along with San Jose and Vancouver. Vancouver had a pretty dominant showing, 4-1 victory. And then we look on the other side for San Jose. Again, another 1-0 victory against the Philadelphia Union, which currently 0-3 to start the season. So again, if they're not Philadelphia is not a world beater. I will say I would like to see Kevin Sullivan play a couple of times this season, just from a U.S. men's national team perspective. I know I just talked about the youth and say you shouldn't always rely on it, but I wouldn't mind seeing a Kevin Sullivan. But again, this is what this whole part of the season is about. It's about getting the 3 points. It's about just bagging them for the future and the remainder of the season, and just that's going to help you come playoff time. I know that the MLS format isn't, strictly point based, whereas, other leagues where you don't have a playoff, it's just the league games and go from there, which I think is the best format. But again, the MLS, I think, is just too far down the line of, having that type of model. I think it's just league season, and then we get into playoffs and we have knockouts, and it's very Americanized, but I think they're too far down the line of even having that. So that is just our wrap up of the MLS week 3. Current leaders right now, number 1, number 2 on the East Side tie, Eastern Conference, they are tied on points, 7 points, but goal difference separates them. New York City FC number 1, Nashville number 2. We look on the West side, on the Western Conference, 4 teams tied on 9 points. San Diego FC number 1, Vancouver number 2. 1 goal separates those sides in goal difference. So goal difference does matter. LAFC, San Jose, right behind them, and they're still perfect, but they're tied with a +6 goal difference. So that's your MLS roundup. Again, we do it every single Monday. We do an MLS roundup from this weekend or from the previous weekend, because we're an American based company, and we think that we should be highlighting the best league in America, and that is the MLS. It's the highest division. You can argue all you want about, promotion, relegation, money this, money that, but it is the highest league, and it does have the best players in our country, and the MLS is a league that we should highlight a little bit more often here on the show, and we're doing that throughout the season. So every Monday there will be an MLS roundup from the weekend that was, and if you're an MLS fan, make sure to top in the comments, shout out your team if you're upset about certain challenges, certain calls, or your team, if your team just annoys you overall, and you want to get your voice out there, just let us know in the comments down below. But before we head into commercial break, we'll talk about Serginho Dest, his injury with PSV after this, and I'm sure we're gonna have some time after this. Maybe we talk a little FA Cup that then happened on this past weekend. A couple of good ties in there. But before we get into our break and talk about a little Serginho Dest, FC Barcelona. We talked about Bayern Munich earlier, but this is another soccer camp that you can get out there with Barca. Barca Academy, a proud sponsor of the National Soccer Network and the official academy of FC Barcelona in the United States. Designed for boys and girls ages 6 to 18, Barca Academy follows and replicates the FC Barcelona game model. Same philosophy used by Barca's professional coaching staff. Right now, you can save $30 on registration by using promo code FCB30 or scan the QR code on your screen. Again, promo code FCB30 or scan the QR code on your screen. Find a camp near you at fcbarcelona.us/camps.
In Barca Camp, I see my son grown on and off of the field. Don't miss the time to register.
Sign up now
for Barca
Barca
Camp.
Camp.
Welcome back to Inside the Game. Topic number 3, just about to get underway with Serginho Dest's injury. My name is Ryan Glinsky. Thank you for tuning in here today. If this is your first time follow, we are normally live 9 to 11 Monday through Friday. But with my co-host Nate Wengler not here today or Tuesday, we're just going to run an hour here, 9 to 10 tomorrow and today. And then Wednesday we'll be back to your regular scheduled programming with 9 to 11 every single day after that. But let's get into it with Serginho Dest. He had an injury over the weekend with PSV. A lot of people thought, you know what, maybe he misses the World Cup, but some good news after the fact via his Instagram. This following the 2-1 win against AZ Alkmaar yesterday, saying one thing for sure, this is not the end of the season. I'm out for a little while to do what I love the most, but one thing for sure, this is not the end of the season. I'll do everything in my power to make sure that I'm coming back ASAP on the right timing. Thanks for the messages. Won't let you down. So very promising news coming from the Serginho Dest camp that he is going to be healthy. He won't be out a long time. We're just under 3 months to the World Cup up to this point. And I think he's going to be a big piece for the U.S. men's national team going forward, and especially in this World Cup. I think he is a very good fit for one of the right wing back roles because we've seen Mauricio Pochettino play with the 3-back role the whole way. Do I think Tim Ream should be one of those guys? Playing in the 3-back, no way. I don't think Tim Ream should be playing at all for the U.S. men's national team. I think he should be on the roster. Do I think he should be playing? No, I don't think he should. I think his legs are past him up to this point, but I think his leadership is I think we need that come the World Cup. But I look at Serginho Dest, I think he's going to fit really good on that right wing spot, right wing back role, because I think the way he can get up and down the field, I think he's a more attacking wing back or outside back as it is anyway. And I think the wing back role fits him perfectly. I think he's a player that can send and cross all over the place, get up the field, add that overlapping run for, maybe it's a Tim Weah on the right, maybe it's a Brendan Aronson, maybe it's a Malik Tillman, maybe it's a Gio Reyna. I don't necessarily know who that right winger is going to be because I think we do know Pulisic's going to be on the left side. I think Balogun will be up the middle, but that right wing spot is kind of up for grabs. And I also think the right wing back role is a little bit up for grabs as well. There's a couple positions on this men's national team I think are still up for grabs. I think the right wing back, the right winger, I think the whole right side is kind of up for grabs. And I think the right center back of the back three is also up for grabs. I think the left wing back up for grabs as well, and the left center back. But outside of that, maybe the number 10 as well, I think, is up for grabs. But I think Dest is going to fit that mold nicely. I think he's going to do a really good job. And then you can have your left winger or your left wing back kind of tuck in a little bit on that left side when Dest gets up the field, because I think he's going to get up the field a lot. Maybe Pochettino does put him on the left and because he wants Pulisic on one side with Dest because of the attacking prowess that Dest has and carries with himself. I think is integral, and especially with a hamstring injury, that can hurt your speed, especially with outside backs. And me being an Arsenal fan, seeing that hamstring injury hurt Hector Bellerin, and what a promising career that guy was set to have. Gets a couple hamstring injuries. I mean, this kid was fast, blazing speed up and down the pitch. But he had a couple of hamstring injuries, and that truly hurt him. And especially later on down in his career, I think that hurt him tremendously. And he lost some of his speed and something with Sergiño Dest. I think he's really quick. I think he's really fast getting up and down the field. And I just think that we need him, especially come World Cup time, because I think he's going to help our chances greatly. If I were to look at the outside back options, I think Tim Weah is one of the for some reason he seems to be playing outside back. I think of a guy like maybe an Alex Freeman. I think of Max Arfston. I think of a guy like Joe Scally. If I'm forgetting someone else, I don't think I am. But I think that the best option is Sergiño Dest. I think Sergiño Dest is our best right wing back option up to this point. I think the way he gets up and down the field in the way he attacks the ball. I mean, look, he had the assist for Christian Pulisic in the World Cup against Iran. And we didn't score many goals in that tournament. I think we scored a total of 3 goals in 4 games, because 0-0 against England, 1-1 against Wales, and then 1-0 against Iran. And then we lost 3-1 to the Netherlands, or 4-1. I forget exactly what the number was. But we didn't score many goals, and that's one thing that's going to hurt you in tournament time. Not only if you look at the group stage, but if it comes down to the final day and goal difference becomes a deciding factor, that's massive. And I think we needed to score more goals for the men's national team in the World Cup. And I think that was a little bit of our Achilles heel. I thought we were really good defensively, because if you do, on the flip side, defensively we were really good. We gave up, I guess, depending on how many goals the Netherlands scored, I think it was 3-1 we lost. So we gave up 4 goals in 4 games. 1 to Wales, 0 to England, 0 to Iran, and then 3 to the Netherlands in the round of 16. But again, if I go back to how does the U.S. men's national team make a deep run, it's simple. You got to win the group. And goal difference, especially in a round robin like this, it could be the big difference between first and second, or if you're in the third spot, the difference between getting through into the knockouts into the round of 32 or getting knocked out and going home and getting grouped, because this team cannot get grouped for a second time on home soil. It just can't. We got grouped in Copa America, and that's horrible. I guess maybe if you're a Greg Berhalter hater, maybe it was a good thing because we did get grouped, but at the same time, we can't get grouped, especially in a World Cup on the big stage. What did I say was the number one thing for the men's national team this whole World Cup? What is the main message I want this men's national team to send not only to the United States, but to the world? How do you respect us? I want the world to respect the U.S. men's national team following this World Cup. I want the Americans that don't watch soccer, that think it's a soft sport, I want them to respect this U.S. men's national team after this World Cup. Why? Because I think this nation is growing. It's already become a soccer nation, but I want everyone to now respect it. We have players playing in the top flights, whether that's a Christian Pulisic at AC Milan, Weston McKennie at Juventus, or a Chris Richards at Crystal Palace. Our players are making names individually, but we haven't done it on a team aspect. And that might also become, that might boil down because of CONCACAF. That very well could be because, we don't get to play the European powers or the South American powers on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. I shouldn't say weekly, maybe a monthly basis when it comes to friendly. friendlies and World Cup qualifiers. We didn't have to qualify for the World Cup. So what has Pochettino done to change that narrative? He hasn't, because we haven't changed the narrative. We didn't do anything in Copa America. He didn't have to qualify for the World Cup to begin with, because we're a host nation, so we're already in to begin with. But if we're looking at it, how do we get everyone to respect? It's a deep run. How do we do that? It starts with winning the group. And I think we need to score more goals compared to the previous World Cup where, like I said, I think we scored 3 goals in 4 games. And that can't happen. I know we were very stout defensively. That's kind of the way that Berhalter had us set up, though, is be very hard to play against, be very stingy at the back, don't let up anything easily, and not really risk anything is what I would say. But at the same time, it didn't result in anything. We didn't win a knockout game. We didn't even win our group. England won our group, I believe, but we didn't even win our group. And we need to change this narrative of we're soft. We don't belong in the big stage. But we need to get the world to respect us. We need to get the Americans behind us that don't typically watch soccer. Look, the Americans know that the women's side is unbelievable, and rightfully so. They continue to dominate in the She Believes Cup. They beat Canada, and then I believe they beat Colombia. In Argentina, I think they swept them all, so I think they're then now in the knockouts, playoffs, semifinals, whatever it is. But the men's side is not respected, and we can argue, the men's side, the women's side, views, money, all you want, but the world on the women's side respects the U.S. women's national team. The men's side doesn't, and we need to somehow get this side to respect. We need to get the world to respect the men's national team, and I think Sergiño Dest can go a way of helping us. I think the way he is offensively, moving up and down the field from the right wing back role, I think he's really good, and we need him for the men's national team going forward, and I think he's going to help our chances. I think he's going to help the men's national team in this World Cup, and I think going forward, why do you think so many people were a little bit scared and a little bit skeptical that, maybe he goes and represents the Netherlands instead? And the Netherlands did beat us in the round of 16. Maybe he was a little upset about that. But does Dest even get into the Netherlands side? I don't know. I just don't necessarily know that answer to that question. But at the same time, I think Dest helps us. Luckily, he's only out for, he says, not that long. Good. Maybe a little bit of a scare for a little bit, but luckily for U.S. men's national team fans, he's not out for that long. We're going to step aside. We'll maybe talk a little bit FA Cup after this. How about that? We talk a little bit Arsenal, Mansfield, maybe a little bit Chelsea, Wrexham, because that was a great tie. VAR overturned Wrexham's comeback effort at the race course. But let's talk about our final summer camp that you can attend. Manchester City soccer camps are a proud sponsor of the National Soccer Network, bringing world-class training inspired by Manchester City's global football philosophy to players across the United States. Open to boys and girls of all skill levels, these camps focus on technical development, decision-making, and playing the game the City way. Right now, you can save $30 on registration by using promo code MCNSN30 or scan the QR code on your screen. Again, that is promo code MCNSN30 or scan the QR code on your screen. Find a camp near you at usacamps.mancity.com. remainder of 11 minutes of our podcast here of Inside the Game. My name is Ryan Glinsky. Again, if you're just stopping by for the first time, drop a follow, subscribe, like, all that fun stuff. Again, normal show 9 to 11, Monday through Friday. However, Nate Wengler, my co-host, down in Lakeland, Florida with the Detroit Tigers. Does a lot of work with the West Michigan Whitecaps, Tigers affiliate, single A affiliate, and he'll be gone today and tomorrow. So just 9 to 10, you'll just be hanging out with me all day here for the lone hour. Then we'll be back to your regular scheduled programming Wednesday. But didn't have this planned at all today. But you know what? Let's talk about it a little bit. FA Cup round of 16. Just three big names left. That's Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City getting into the quarterfinals. The final match is actually today, West Ham versus Brentford, which was postponed on Saturday. I don't know the exact reason for that, but they were postponed on Saturday. Now we'll be playing. We'll be playing here today at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. But just a couple of results. Arsenal beat Mansfield 2-1. Wrexham, Chelsea, that was the big one, 4-2. Newcastle, Man City, they seem like there's always certain teams that play each other all the time, and it feels like Man City always plays Newcastle and Real Madrid. I don't know why, especially come cup ties. But Man City defeats Newcastle 3-1. Southampton defeats Fulham. So championship side beats a Premier League side. So Southampton is through. Port Vale, another lower league side, defeats Sunderland. I don't know exactly what league Port Vale is in, but then the final championship side to fall, Norwich, Leeds United. Norwich falls to Leeds United. So Port Vale, League One, they are 24th in League One. They are set to go down to League Two. So they have to be the lowest, because Southampton is still in the championship. So let's see. Yeah, Southampton's 8th in the championship. Wrexham 6th in the championship. Port Vale is 24th in League One, and they're now in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. That's the magic of the Cup, man. There's nothing that beats the magic of the Cup, especially in the FA Cup. You know, everyone likes March Madness, and I do as well, but everyone likes the Cinderella story. Port Vale does it. And they're through into the quarterfinals. I don't know when the draw will exactly be for the quarters. But again, could Arsenal and Man City play each other again? They already in the Carabao Cup final. They've already played in the Premier League once. Going to play for a second time. They are in the Champions League. I think they're on the opposite ends of each other, though, so they wouldn't play each other until the final. But there's a possibility. This is crazy to think about. There is a small possibility that Arsenal and Man City could play each other 4 times. And I guess maybe for Cup finals, because they could play in the Champions League final. They're already set in the Carabao Cup final. There are 2 of the remaining 8 clubs left in the FA Cup final. And obviously, if you want to count the Premier League number 1 and number 2 as a Cup final, I guess we could call it that. But how crazy would that be if 4 teams to play each other in Cup finals all at once? Arsenal, Man City. Maybe there could be a quadruple at that point. I think that would be the closest we could get. But obviously, the first Cup final is March 22nd, just about 12 days away, just under 2 weeks for that Carabao Cup. I ultimately think the winner of that wins the Premier League. If Arsenal wins, they win the Premier League. Man City wins, I think they win the Premier League. But yeah, this is the main thing I wanted to talk about, though, was Wrexham, Chelsea. I think this was going to be the measuring stick for Wrexham, because I think there is still a level of concern I have with Wrexham. I think they're a club that is doing it a fine job. I don't necessarily know if it's the right way because of money comes in, but you know what? That's the game. Money wins, and that's just, if people are upset about that, then pick a different sport to watch. But money wins. But this is my biggest concern when it comes to Wrexham. My biggest concern with Wrexham is I think they're getting promoted too fast. And, maybe people are like, well, what are they supposed to do? Just stay in a league, get the foundation the right way? Well, I think the foundation has been there for the last couple of years. I think it was when they got into the National League. Out of that, I think the foundation was set then. But when you were in the National League with a mid-table League One team, essentially, you're going to get through those first 2 leagues no problem. And I think that's fine. I think once they got into League One, I think that's when everything kind of was like, all right, let's see what they do. What's the level of foundation like there? And I think they have a pretty good foundation. But then they get into the championship after 1 season of League One, and it's like, well, could they get out of the championship? And right now, I think they are sixth. I think they're in the final championship spot. Yes, they are in the final championships playoff spot. It does expand to 8 teams next season. Again, makes no sense why that's a thing, but again, money rules everything. So, as Wu Tang says, cash rules everything around me. And Wrexham, 6th place right now. They have played one less game than 5th place Hull. They're 3 points behind them, but it seems like Wrexham is going to probably mainly sit in that final 2 playoff spots. Below them is Derby County, who has played one extra game, 3 points behind them, and then Southampton in 8th. So I think Wrexham is going to kind of sit in that 5th and 6th spot. Do I think they get promoted this year? No, I don't think they do. I think they sit in the championship, and I think that's a good thing. Because I think if you're looking at that Chelsea game, dominated in possession. They were 71 to 30, or 71 or 70-30, I think was the exact stat on possession. 69-31. Basically same thing. Shots, they took a ton of shots, 17-19 in favor of Chelsea by 2. But I just think that game, I think they were a little bit over their head. I think they were. They lost 4-2. They had a goal disallowed because of VAR. I know the game went into extra time, but I think the way the game looked, I don't think that I don't think they can compete with the best out there. You look at the players out there. Was it necessarily Chelsea's strongest side? No, it wasn't. And I think that's a concern. If you're Wrexham, because Chelsea's a mid-table side. But if you're Wrexham in season 1 of the Premier League, it's all about survival. Can you survive your first season in the Premier League? And I think they're capable of doing that. But at the same time, I just don't think that. I think they would go down. I think one season in the Premier League, because Chelsea, not the greatest side, but it's still a Premier League side. They took to extra time. But at the same time, I think that I would have liked a little bit of a stronger performance from Wrexham to really feel confident in them of making the Premier League, because the goal is not to just make the Premier League for one season. That's not the goal. And I think they would go down relatively quickly if this is the current team constructed. Again, they'll have a massive transfer budget if they were to get into the Premier League, and they'd make the necessary upgrades as they normally do. And Phil Parkinson has done an unbelievable job with Wrexham, and I think their recruitment at Wrexham has been unbelievable. I think it's fine, but at the same time, I think they would get manhandled rather quickly, and I think they would get relegated pretty quickly if they were Wrexham. But let's get into question of the day here. Salt Athletic, an official sponsor of the National Soccer Network, and question of the day. Use promo code NSN15 to save 15% off that #1 smell-proof cleat bag that works. Sorry, just had to grab it right here. Sorry, I was out of frame. Yeah, there's a green screen behind me. Yeah, I can get cut off real quick. But #1 smell-proof cleat bag. There's the inside. You can put any cleats. You can really put anything in it. It's going to stop the smell. We tested ourselves here at the National Soccer Network. Scan the QR code on your screen or visit saltathletic.com today. If you want a chance to win a free one, we are doing a giveaway with Salt Athletic right now. We'll announce a winner for the next I think it's 16 or 17 Fridays, a winner on the show for a Salt Athletic bag giveaway. All you got to do is head over to Instagram, drop us a follow at NatSoccerTV, and all you got to do is comment hashtag NSN Salt Giveaway and tag a friend. You must be following to enter. But again, we're going to steer. We typically do a lot of other sports topics as well, especially in our second hour. But today we stuck to strictly soccer. But question of the day is, Tom Izzo broken after yesterday? If no one knows who Tom Izzo is, head coach of Michigan State. Michigan fan myself. Big rivalry game yesterday. Michigan completes the season sweep of the Spartans yesterday. But I think Tom Izzo's a little bit broken. I saw a couple of comments this week, especially where he says, damn, I'm not anyone's little brother. The crowd didn't see anything about the game. I'm no one's damn little brother. I have never heard Tom Izzo in the, 30 years he's been coaching, have the comments he's had this week regarding this game. You can not like your rival. That's completely fine. But there's a certain level of respect, and he always says that, but it feels like there's a ton of hatred in this rivalry again. And I think back to the John Beilein days where Michigan finally became good. But there seemed to be this kind of mutual respect. Like, they didn't like each other, obviously. It's a rivalry, but they didn't hate each other. But then all of a sudden, a new sheriff comes in town in Dusty May. In the last 2 years, the records are very similar. And Dusty May, in 2 years, already has 2 banners hanging in the rafters. He's got a Big Ten tournament title. He's got a Big Ten regular season title. Favorites to win the Big Ten tournament. One of the favorites to win the national title. Michigan State, not a national championship caliber team. They're not. If you hate on it, then you're just delusional at this point. But I think Tom Izzo's a little bit broken. I think he really is. I think he doesn't like the fact that a coach, his rival, his in-state rival, not only takes the Mr. Michigan and Trey McKinney, who was phenomenal again last night and all season, comes in, takes him from a spot that normally the Flint area, Flint-Saginaw area goes to Michigan State. Michigan takes him away, and all of a sudden breaks the record for most Big Ten wins in a season. 19. That's the first time that's ever happened in the Big Ten. Lost 1 game to Wisconsin, and their other loss of the season came to Duke, which both teams lost to. I think Tom Izzo's a little bit broken. I think he's a little bit upset. Do I think he's a bad coach? No, I don't think Tom Izzo's a bad coach. But at the same time, I think he's a little bit broken after yesterday's performance because Michigan, 2 double-digit wins over the Spartans this season. They could see each other in the Big Ten tournament. That is definitely a strong possibility. That's going to do it for episode 245 on Inside the Game. My name's been Ryan Glinsky. Again, Nate Wingler will be back on Wednesday. It'll be just me tomorrow, 9 to 10 tomorrow. We typically do 2 hours, but it's just going to be 1 hour just because it's me just running solo for this show. But that is going to do it for episode 245 on Inside the Game. Again, make sure to drop us a follow at Nat Soccer TV on Instagram, National Soccer Network on TikTok. Drop us a follow if you're watching on YouTube. Drop us a follow, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you're on Roku, thank you for tuning in like you do every single week. Roku is where majority of our listeners go, and we appreciate the support everywhere. Facebook as well. Drop us a follow. Our numbers continue to rise on Facebook live streams, so make sure to drop us a follow on Sports Nation TV and National Soccer Network on Facebook. But until tomorrow, see ya.
From the biggest matches to the hottest takes, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wangler bring you the stories, the analysis, and the edge you won't get anywhere else. Streaming live weekdays at 9 a.m. on YouTube, Roku TV, Facebook, Twitter, and all major platforms. No filters, no fluff, just real talk, real